the auspicious honey yellow-eyed, which means that the masculine never wants to hurt anything that is weaker than himself. He feels responsible for those that are weaker than himself. So he tends, whatever he looks at, he sees it as being good. And that includes women and the fact that they're not like him.
Hi everyone, my name is SindyKing. I'm a relationship and dating coach and an astrologer. And today we're going to be actually talking a very important topic about masculinity and how do we find out if you are in the masculine side or if you want to be dating someone who has a higher masculinity, and see how that looks like and what does it look like when you are dating or looking for something, or even about yourself, and how to enhance those qualities if you are lacking of it. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget to subscribe. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? So I have a special guest today. Her name is Karen White, and I want to introduce her to you guys again. So she's been on my channel a few times, and she's also practicing Vedic astrologer, and it's such an exciting place to be talking about this in today's era. So welcome. Hi Karen, welcome back. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming back. We had so much fun the last time, and I'm so excited about this topic. It's talking about the masculine side, which is a really great energy, especially if you're a woman who wants to be dating a masculine person, or if you want to be a masculine individual in general. That could be a man or a woman. So I think that's a really important topic that we want to be talking, especially we have this equality that's coming, you know, in this era right now. So let's talk about what that look like, considered to be like a masculine, a man or a woman. What does that look like? And it could be an exalted sun, for example.
We all have a masculine side, that's for sure. But for men, their masculine side is more important. That's their first suit. That's what their body is supporting. That's what nature is supporting for them. For women, the masculine side is the part of her that takes care of her feelings first, and children under the age of 5 and disabled people, and then everybody else after that second. So that's how a woman's supposed to use her masculine side, and of course to build her career. If she has a career, if she's has a business, something along those lines, it does require some masculine skills. And sometimes it's not easy for a woman to develop those. Like for instance, my Atmakaraka planet, the self-producer planet, is the moon, right? And what is the moon? Inconsistent. That's what the moon is. And so in my business, the hardest thing for me to do is to be consistent and steadfast, which is what the sun is. The most lovely thing about men when they have a strong masculine side is their steadfastness and consistency. Now, their feelings about you don't change from day to day. You know, if they've made the decision that you're their woman and they love you, then they've assumed that they've made a good decision, and so they love you, even when you're the moon, right? And you're all over the place, meaning like one day you love him, the next day you don't, and the next day you think, well, I don't know if this is a good idea to be with you. You know, like women, the way that women are. It's terrible for a woman when she's with a man who doesn't have that aspect of masculinity. And there's also a nobility to masculinity that it's really beautiful, actually, where they will sacrifice their own personal desires for the sake of their family or the sake of their company or whatever their kingdom is. Yeah. And, you know, a woman's masculine side is also used when she's raising children, because she does have to put her children, when they're small especially, their needs ahead of her own. And so that requires her masculine side, which is why in the birth chart, Moon is the natural ruler of mother, but so is Mars, a very masculine energy planet. Because Mars keeps the children alive, it teaches them right from wrong, does a lot of work. It's very work intensive having children. So that's when a woman's masculine side is important too. Is that kind of what you were looking for? Or are you talking about something else completely different?
No, you're right on the line. And, you know, I want to mention that there's something that you mentioned a little bit about a man runs his kingdom and he has what you call honey eyes.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So,
Yeah.
And he's a ruler. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, the auspicious honey yellow-eyed, which means that the masculine never wants to hurt anything that is weaker than himself. He feels responsible for those that are weaker than himself. So he tends, whatever he looks at, he sees it as being good. And that includes women and the fact that they're not like him. You know, that they don't have that same type of energy, usually. I mean, there are very masculine women, but that's a different conversation. Yeah, so that's what it means, is that they look upon everything as being good. And they want to lead and protect the people in their kingdom. They want to have a vision for their kingdom. Because I always like the scripture, the scripture, without a vision, the people perish. And that's the job of the king. And so every man has his own kingdom. And whether it's big or small doesn't matter. It's how he reigns over his kingdom that matters. You know, whether he sees it as being there to satisfy his needs, or if he sees it as being there for him to take care of and to develop as a human being through taking care of those things.
Right. And when you were mentioning about kingdom, what does that look like? Do we make decision based on, do we ask people to make decisions on, like, to run your kingdom, or should you just make the decision and you just hope and just go with it? Or they're going to be really passive and aggressive? What does that look like, a real king?
Well, a real king always has advisors, for sure, because he can't know everything. And a confident king has no problems asking for other people's opinions. But ultimately, he's the one who has to make the hard decision. And that's what a king does. He makes the hard decisions, meaning the buck ends with him. You know, ultimately, I mean, he can have, his advisor can say, oh, you need to do this for whatever reason. And if he does it and it goes wrong, he's the one who's responsible. So the king is the one who makes the hard decisions, because there always have to be hard decisions. So like in a family, for instance, a husband and wife, it works best if the man, the person in the masculine body, is the one doing the masculine energy. And when there is something that they're, say, disagreeing on, it works better if they agree that the masculine energy person has the final say. Because there's really, you know, democracy in certain kinds of like family systems. It works really well up to a point. I mean, here's the thing. The feminine energy person always has the right to say no. Always has the right to say, well, I know it's your job to make that decision, but that's just a non-negotiable for me. I can't deal with that, so no. But it works better when they agree that the masculine energy person, if there is a disagreement, will make the final decision, which is why it's the hardest thing to do, because sometimes you have to disappoint people. Sometimes people have their feelings hurt because of it. And, but that's life.
Right. And does that sound like a masculine or even a king considered to be selfish at times?
What do you mean?
So when he's making a decision, is it all about himself, his goals and his ideas, or is overall in general to make the kingdom better?
That's a tough balance, because he does have to have a self. He does have to have a vision, a mission, something he wants to do in life that's important to him, no matter what woman he's with. But at the same time, the decisions he makes often means that he sacrifices his own personal desires. Let me see if I can give you a good example of that. It might take me a while to think of a good example. Say for instance, he loves tennis, and he plays tennis whenever he gets a chance. But his eldest son has been having a lot of trouble, and he hasn't been spending very much time with him. Now, the son has gotten to a critical point where he needs guidance. Now, is his father, is he going to just keep going and playing tennis on the weekends? Or is he going to sacrifice that for a time in order to be with his son and take care of whatever is going on with his son? That kind of thing. He will sacrifice that when it's necessary for the good of the family. Or maybe it's the company. It's the king who has to make the hard decisions when a company is not doing as well as perhaps they'd hoped they would be doing. And so some of the positions have to be eliminated, right? Somebody has to be the bad guy and do that for the health of the company. So that's what a king has to be able to do. Even if he personally really likes the people who are doing the jobs that have to be eliminated for a time, even though his personal relationship with them matters a great deal to him. So those are some examples.
That's a really great example of what a king should step up. And it's almost sound like there was a little bit of Venus was going in there too. So because that's important, because I think what we have learned, especially for myself, is Venus represents sperm or water, liquid, or things like that.
You mean DNA?
Yeah.
Yeah, Venus is DNA, yeah.
So that's really helpful in a masculine individual to have that, especially for a man. So that being said, what about if he has a very suppressed masculine? How does that affect them, past, future, and now? How does that look like? Someone has a suppressed.
You mean like, say, a Saturn is with the sun or something like that? Well, that's a really hard one for a man. It really is. That is when their natural masculinity, which every man has, even if his sun, his moon, and his ascendant are all in female signs, it doesn't matter. He's still a masculine being because he's in a man's body. But it's very difficult. And say, for instance, you have Saturn with the sun, because Saturn is neuter, right? He's neither male nor female. And many men who have that are actually, they're gay. But the men who are not gay, and even gay men who have that combination, it's still very painful and difficult, because there's always that push-pull between, well, what am I? Am I the king of my kingdom, or am I the servant? And it's a lifelong challenge to figure that out. And oftentimes, why it's difficult for a woman to be in a relationship with a man who has that combination is because he so often will talk himself out of his inspirations. He'll have this idea and he'll be excited about it and lit up over it. And then his fears, because Saturn is our fears, right? He's all about survival. He wants to make sure we don't make mistakes, that we have what we need for the winter. and he'll start talking himself out of it. And then after he's talked himself out of it, then he's depressed, of course, which is hard to be around a depressed person. Or he'll go the other way and he'll be jealous and envious of other men who follow their inspirations, even when they make mistakes. You know, like for instance, I remember reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And one of the things that stood out in my mind the most is when he said that most business people who own a business, they need to fail 5 times before they get it right. Well, you know, a man who can do that, start a business, it fails. Say it doesn't work out. He starts it again and 5 times before he gets it right. Now that's somebody with a strong sun. That's somebody who just stays maintaining on their vision, their inspiration, and they just keep going until they get it right. Whereas somebody whose masculinity is suppressed won't even try, because he'll listen to things like, well, you know, most businesses fail. Statistics say most businesses fail. And then he'll, you know, even though he would like to do that, or he'll try to do it in the most cautious way possible. And it will fail not because he did, you know, he didn't, because he was too reckless. It will fail because he's been too cautious. So for someone like that, I always suggest a business coach or a career coach, because a career coach will help you to stick to your vision, stick to your inspiration, in spite of all those fears, in spite of all those voices in your head that got embedded in there when you were growing up. You know, like say your father was really harsh on you, or your mother was really harsh on you, and she was constantly castrating you right and left. You know, it's hard to work against those things. So I suggest that you don't even try. Don't even try to do it by yourself. Though, of course, a man with Sun-Saturn combinations are often very stubborn, and they'll keep trying to do the thing that doesn't work and doing it in their way, even though it doesn't work. And it takes them much longer before they'll feel safe enough to listen to someone. So yeah, that's hard. But you know what? I don't like to doom anybody. I think there's a way around everything. Seriously.
It's
There's
true.
always a way.
Like you were mentioning earlier, like there is always solution. It's not like you're always stuck. And I think success happens as a unit, as a community, not as only an individual. You have inspire ideas, but in order to expand and create growth, you need people, servants, and people around you in order to create success. I never seen a company with one employee and just thrive.
Exactly.
It's a little bit weird. It's like, so yeah. It's just like fishing in a pond with no fish in there, right? Yeah. So right. I think it's really important. And what you were saying earlier about, you know, suppress a son, which is his identity, can naturally sabotage relationship because he has doubts. Like, you know, so he would take himself out of the game before it really is over.
It's very disappointing to the woman, yeah. Because she always sees the greatness in her man. You know, it's like we have special eyesight. And we can see that. We can, because that's what we look for. We look for the sun.
Right.
We look for that noble. It's a nobility kind of thing. We look for somebody who's excited about life, somebody who, you know, wants to do something. Whether it's a small thing or a big thing, doesn't matter. It's the quality of the, how do I say it? It's just having a goal, really. And this is another thing too, for men who have a lot of feminine energy. It doesn't mean that they cannot accomplish what they want to accomplish. They just may need support, more support, and or they need to borrow some tools from the female side, from their feminine side. You know, because it's the feminine the fulfillment comes through the feminine, which is one of the reasons why men, after they get on their path, usually, when they have a clear idea where they're going and what they want to do, then they feel more ready to take on a queen to help them reign over their kingdom. But before that time, usually when they're saying things like, I'm really not ready for that, usually what that means is that they're really not. They haven't figured out where they're going and what they want to do. And what they want to do in a relationship. Do they want family? Do they want children? If they don't know, if they really don't know, then, and you do want that, then it's better for you to, move on to somebody else who's in the same place at the same time you are. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there. What was your question again? Sorry.
I think you're doing a great job. Okay. So just continue on.
I see. I'm trying to remember what my point was there.
I think cutting him off because he's no longer is steadfast or unsure what he's clear. Because if she wants a baby and he's sort of already, in his 40s and still doesn't have an idea if that's what he wants. And you're saying she needs to take care of herself and find a man that can give her that lifestyle that she.
Yeah, exactly. And usually when he says something like that, he's serious. He really means it. But he's hoping that you'll stick around anyway. And a lot of women do. And that's where things really go terribly wrong for them. That's a great way to have a terrible relationship.
Right, because she's spending all this time, it could be 10, and he still say the same. If a guy says, I'm not ready to have family or kids, that's something that a woman should be receptive and be like, okay, I have to respect him and be able to take herself out of the picture because.
Yeah, exactly. And that is respect. It is saying, well, okay, I'm hearing you.
Right.
And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you telling me the truth. Because it does take a certain amount of integrity to tell the truth. And men usually do. I have to say, they usually do tell you the truth.
Right. And that's really important for that. So when a man is approaching to a woman, he's coming off very strong and very masculine, and she's very sensitive, and he can sometimes, I think an exalted son can not intentionally hurt her feeling, but it comes off very strong. How do he approach that to someone who is a little bit like a moon person? You're so indecisive. I can't handle you. This is annoying. I'm pissed off. Figure it out. He would say something in a way it's really hurtful to a sensitive moon person.
Okay. What do you mean where he's talking to a woman as if she were a man?
Yeah.
Well, I think the woman's reaction will basically let him know that he's doing it the wrong way. She may, and for a woman too, it is better for her if she has some kind of a feeling problem to talk it out with a woman first, and then come to the guy and say, okay, this is how I feel. This is what I want or what I don't want. Are you willing to X, Y, and Z, whatever, and take it from there. But if he hurts her feelings, well, then, she needs to show that her feelings are hurt. And she could always say something along the lines like, would you like to try that one over? Let's have a do-over. Men, I think, generally understand. And in a really masculine man, he does know to approach a woman differently than another guy. And most of the time, he's not going to do that unless he's in his work brain. She comes up to him while he's in the middle of doing something, and then she wants to interrupt him for something that is not work related. It takes him more time to get over into his other brain, the right brain, in order to respond to her in a way that doesn't sound like he's barking at her, like you would at work. So, a lot of times it's the woman who really needs to understand this about men, the way they think, the way they are. So when they're working, they're working. We're the ones who can switch back and forth almost at will anytime we want to, but it's much harder for men. So basically, I guess it depends on whether or not she requires him to, if there's any kind of a price to pay for that. If she allows him to just bark at her all the time and treat her like an employee, well, then he's going to keep doing that. Unless she's the one who says, this is not, I don't like this. Don't talk to me that way. I don't like that. That hurts.
Right. And that's really important for a masculine man to be self-aware of that so that he can fix it, right? I think most masculine wants to fix things to make things work. Yeah,
exactly. But there are good ways a woman can do it and bad ways a woman can do it. I think that both people usually are trying to understand the other person. When a man, for instance, if he knows that he wants family, he knows he wants to be married, and then he will do his best to make that work, because that's what he wants. That's his goal. Now, if he's not sure if this is what he wants, and it kind of happens to him accidentally, then he's a much more difficult man to be with. Then I would say that his masculine side needs some strengthening. One of the things that helps with the sun energy is one of the things I tell my male clients to work with their masculine side, their sun energy, is to use astrology, which, for instance, like on Sundays, which is the sun's day, you can go online and Google planetary hours calculator, and then you put in the date and your location, and it will calculate the hours of the day, the planetary hours of the day. And you choose one of the sun hours, and during that time period, that's when you can maybe read a book written by a coach about your career, or you can write down your vision, how you would like things to be if you could have them any way you wanted. Yes, and you re-inspire yourself. So you've gone through a period where you tried something and it failed, and so you're dejected. Well, you just go back to the sun. Another thing too, if you start focusing too much on your fears and worrying about all the things that can go wrong, then you've fallen into the Saturn side. You simply go back to the sun, and every day there's a sun hour. It's just that it's a bit more powerful on Sundays, because for the obvious reason. And you re-inspire yourself, and maybe you need to correct that vision a little bit. Maybe you need to course correct. But whatever, you just keep working with the sun, always. Because the sun is the soul anyway. It really represents what we're here to do. The most important thing we are here to do in this lifetime before we leave this planet.
A masculine woman, maybe not yourself, but a masculine woman is competing with a man's ego. How do you handle something like that?
You mean if she's in a relationship with a man, right, and she wants to be the feminine energy, but she's converted to, so she's in a competitive thing with him? Well, the best thing for the man to do, there's a couple of things he can do. He can go to a more playful way and start teasing her, right? Teasing her, making her laugh. Or he can say to her something along the lines of, I really don't want, the reason I'm with you is for your heart. It's for your femininity. It's not for your masculinity. I don't really want to be with another guy. Which is not saying that he doesn't like her masculine side. It means he doesn't want her to be competing with him, because it's annoying. You don't want somebody always competing with you or correcting you, or because that's one of the ways that women do that, is they'll correct him. No, it wasn't Tuesday. It was Wednesday. Like, really, who cares? Seriously. It's just it's like having a little gnat buzzing around your face, right? It's annoying. And maybe she doesn't realize that she's being annoying. So he kind of has to let her know. And that's one of the ways that he can do it. Like, and he may not even need to say anything to her, like, the reason I'm with you is for your femininity. He could just ask her, so how are you feeling right now? Because usually if a woman's doing that, there's some underlying feeling reason for doing it. It sounds really sexist, but it's true. She may be feeling invisible to him, or she may be feeling like she's not respected for her, what matters to her. Like, maybe he's in the habit of not treating her feelings like they're important. It's possible that he dismisses feelings, her feelings, as not being important, or because he doesn't understand them. It's like, well, I don't understand how you could feel that way. And so therefore he dismisses the feeling as not being important. So what will happen is she'll go to her masculine side and she'll argue with him and she'll compete with him, because one way or another, she needs to feel significant in the relationship. So first you might want to figure out if that's what you're doing, because it's very easy to dismiss the feminine because it is softer, but it's no less important, because that's where your fulfillment is going to come, is through the feminine. And if it's not through your woman, then it's going to have to be through your own feminine, and you need to pay attention to your own feminine then and give it as much validation, I guess you could say, as the masculine side. So that's really what that is. Like, you could even ask her a question like, are you feeling like you don't matter in this relationship, or you feel like I don't really care about your feelings? Now, if he's going to ask that question, he has to really want to know. And that means maybe hearing something that doesn't feel good. For instance, she may say, yeah, actually, I do feel kind of invisible in this relationship and like I don't matter. So I do feel like I have to argue with you. I have to compete with you to make you see me. Or maybe she's just, forgetting that she's not at work. And so he can just, like, teasing is usually the easiest way to do it. Just get playful and funny and silly and make her laugh. Then that'll take her out of that weird frame of mind.
That is so true, because if you make it really fun and lighthearted in a way, it becomes not attactive, like you're not attacking her.
Yeah, exactly. And then she can see herself. Like, I had a boyfriend one time. He was so funny. He could totally mimic me when I was being ridiculous. And it made me laugh so hard. And it would get me completely out of a bad mood, where I'd get into that place that all men dread. And the woman is like, finding significance in everything he says, and the tone of voice that he says it in, and the glance, all those little things. And it's really, scary to a man. And he would just tease me. He would tease me and make fun of me and make me laugh so hard. And it worked every time. So